Welcome back to day 19 of our chess journey to 1500 ELO on chess.com. Let's jump on ahead into the browser and get a game going. So today we are playing with the black pieces, and this is our first time facing this move here. I think we could just go ahead and play 1d5 here and see what our opponent plays. This might have been a bad idea considering we are going into unknown territory here. The Tennyson Gambit. I think we'll avoid their preparation here and probably just play a solid e6. And our opponent proceeds to resign. Well, that's quite something. They didn't get their opening. So today I guess we'll be playing 2 games, as this was quite anticlimactic. We won't be reviewing this game though. Here we go. Now we are white and we will play our normal 1d4. Our opponent is called Sokolov, and they are rated 1396 from Poland. Let's play the Queen's Gambit as per usual. We'll go ahead and play like this, and if this move is played, we go a4. They strike back in the center, which I think is supposed to be the best move here. We will go ahead and play this move maybe. What happens if they capture? I haven't actually looked into this because it seems like it would give us an isolated pawn in the end here. We might have this move, however. But then the thing is, if we capture, they take our queen here and we will lose our right to castle very early on. And I don't really think we would like that. So I think we'll go for this, and we will end up with an isolated pawn, but we will try to find a way of dealing with it. Afterwards, I'm curious as to what the critical move here is in response to e5. So we will try to remember checking that. Right here I'm curious as to whether we are able to play this move or not. I would like to defend this pawn here in another way, but they might have this move. The thing is, it might be an overextension by them. I think this would be... never mind, they would take. Otherwise it would be an interesting continuation here, hitting the pawn and threatening a fork. This move does threaten this, however. They could respond like this, but then we would probably split their pawns. So instead, we go into this variation here, which is going to result in this position. Just want to make sure we don't have any shenanigans here. But this probably just loses a piece. So we either play this or we get the queens off the board. I think we'll go for this. The good thing here is our opponent is entirely undeveloped, but they have this move then. Here I think we should probably just develop. We shouldn't push, as it would probably be an overextension by us. This move or this move. I think we want to be more flexible with our possibilities in the terms of developing our bishop, so we might go for our knight first and prepare castling. Here I think our opponent might play this move and threaten capturing here and probably go for a queenside castle. I'm liking the threat of this move, however, because it threatens this fork, and if they take, we could get our pawns back together. So what happens here in this continuation? I think they are probably going to take, then we take, and we could look for a pawn structure like this. Then we could force our pawns back together, which I'm liking. Alternatively, this might be a much better way of doing the same thing, threatening this. And I think it wins a pawn because they could only really defend this pawn with their bishop. So we go here, they go, sorry, here. We take, take, and take. And because they can't castle yet, they can't pin our bishop immediately. So let's go for this. It drops our defense here, I'm noticing, but we get our fork before they get theirs. And it's not really a fork, I think this will be the critical move, so they can't castle. But now we need to defend this pawn afterwards, and this is probably a good move. This, and this are all good moves, but this is just a short-term tactical threat, and this is just the positional important moves. So it looks like our opponent has realized they probably blundered something here. And I'm curious as to how they are going to respond. This might be the critical way of defending. And after this, maybe going here and threatening to hit our knight rather. So we would lose our bishop. Let's look at this continuation. Here we would have to probably drop our bishop back. But then we would double our pawns. So do we have a better way of doing this? I'm not quite sure actually. We might have to double our pawns in that case, but our opponent finds this move. But this, I think, is not what they want to see right now, because this really delays their development. I think we want to castle here probably and target their king immediately. I don't think we have any other really powerful moves here. So let's say castles, they probably play this bishop out to prepare castling of their own, maybe here even, so we can't hit them with the check here. I would have liked being able to check them here or denying castling, but we can't occupy that, so we will have to look for other solutions. I'm liking our pressure here. This might even be a threat. So let's have a look at this, this, and this even. Here they have to decide between castling and defending their pawn, I think. But I think either way, the critical move here is going to start out with castling. We are expecting this, as we mentioned. This is probably a good move. And I think our lead in development here is making it really awkward for our opponent to play. This might be a move. Or alternatively, this might be a move. But if our opponent plays here, I think we have this move, which probably forces this, because otherwise they block, I guess. Then we take, they take, we take, and they lose a pawn. So I think we would be happy to see this move, as it would probably lose a tempo for our opponent. I'm not seeing any threats for this bishop, and their knights can probably not do all that much. What happens if they play h6? Do we have this move first? They would block. And I'm not really seeing any good follow-up. So if they play this move, we might have to drop back. Let's keep on calculating. Do we have a good move here? Probably not, but we might try to reposition our knight. This defends this pawn here, and we could bring our bishop out as we plan to, get our knight into the game. This move, I think, is actually pretty good. But what happens if we play this? They might go here, and then we go here, and then they can't really block for their king. If we go here, they might drop back, but then I think we won a tempo in a sense. We would like them to not target this square, so I think we'll go ahead and kick their bishop first. This would be followed by this, and if they go here, I think we just go for the check. So I think they have to keep their bishop along this diagonal. So this is probably a mistake. Here they can't really block because this loses a pawn at the very least. So here I'm expecting this move maybe, as we talked about. And then what happens after? Actually, this move might be bad for them because they couldn't castle then. If they castle here, we just capture. So this is a bit tricky for our opponent already, and I think we have very good pressure and decent chances in our game here. What happens here? I think we just keep going with this plan and deny them any chances of castling. Then we can go here, after which they would probably move their pawn. But then if we go here, we threaten taking their knight here, and then we would reiterate this threat over here. So I think, generally speaking, we are in a really good position here. Yeah, let's just go with this as we talked about. And here we have this move. Let's just make sure we don't have anything else. I'm not really seeing it, so let's go for this. They move their king, which is a welcome sight. So which move could we possibly have here then? This pawn is hanging, of course, but I don't like this move. How about playing this and threatening this, but then we would block our powerful bishop, which I'm not really liking, I think. We still have a lot of time we could use here, so let's try to be clinical about this. I think we should focus on development here. What happens if this is played? Our rook would be hanging, so we probably have to deal with this threat here in one way or another. As much as I would have liked getting our bishop out here, their bishop now defends this pawn, so I think this diagonal here is better either way. So let's go ahead and defend like this. Then after a knight move, we could double up our rooks, and then our opponent would be in trouble, I think. This move might be expected. They could play this move perhaps, trying to get their king up and get their rook into the game. The thing is, right now we don't really have a material advantage. So we have to convert this positionally. I'm noticing this is a possible threat, but I'm not seeing our opponents follow up after this move. And the threat here isn't really immediate either. It's if this opens up, they could double up with their bishop. So this knight is still serving the purpose of defending this, so they can't move it. This bishop is kind of locked in a cage. This knight here. How would they go about moving this? This doesn't accomplish a lot, I think. This loses the knight. This loses it. This seems like backwards progress. They can't move to any of the squares. I think here they either had to move a pawn here to prepare castling, or they would have to move their bishop into the game. This loses a pawn, because we just take and we have one more attacker. This seems to be a slow move, it might be okay. I think probably a move like this might be coming. But then I think we could get our bishop up, or our rook up rather, with a tempo. Because eventually we will want to double up our rooks here. But if we play this immediately, our opponent might perhaps play this move. The thing is, we can't really generate an immediate threat here, because we can't check their king. This doesn't work, so we would lose our rook. So if they play here, I think we could just play slowly. Because I think our opponent needs a bit too many tempi here to deal with their difficult position, as their time usage is also kind of indicating here. What happens after h3? I think this move is probably best. It does take away this potential maneuver here for our other knight, but we could get different ways of getting it into the game as well. I would have liked being able to paralyze those pieces here, so their rook here wouldn't be able to get into the game, but I'm not seeing a quick way of doing so. Targeting this square another time would be decent, I think, because then we might threaten this move. But we don't really have a piece that could hit this immediately. Then we would have to probably just double up to do so. If they play here, I think we go like this, as we mentioned. I think that's a decent idea, at least. the bishop would be unprotected. But this move might also invite some kind of attack on this pawn here. But we couldn't do this because we would use our bishop, so we can't threaten their pawn on the other side. So which other moves could our opponent possibly have here? This might actually be a move, trying to pry our structure apart. But in that case, I think we just ignore the threat and just continue on doing our thing, because if they take, our rook here is defended. So then we just play like this, and I think it should be fine. Alternatively, we could even go for this move, perhaps, just grabbing more space. Then this move is no longer possible, which we looked at in another variation after they played here and here. So then this move would be more viable, I think. So yeah, I'm curious as to what our opponent is currently looking at, but if we just keep pieces on the board after this move here, we are probably going to be looking very crisp in terms of time here, because it's going to be difficult to maneuver a tactical game like this with 3 minutes left. So I think our main mental note here is probably going to be, if they play the move here, then we try to keep as much of the tension in the position as possible without really losing any of our advantage by doing so. I'm not really seeing a lot of other threats here. They might move this pawn, which doesn't do a whole lot. I don't think we have this move. We wouldn't have it immediately either way, because they would take, but I'm thinking of a long-term remaneuver here. Like, say they play here and we go here, they play something random, like moving their king over for manual castling. Then this would be defended, and we might have a remaneuvering move like this, I think, going in this way. I would like to know, by the way, if anyone would be interested in... I've been thinking for a while about making a club on chess.com, and at the moment I have to mention it wouldn't be a club where I would be doing a lot immediately, but in the long term we could try to make it a scene where we could help each other create a community where we could help each other learn, and I think we could probably host some tournaments for like every X amount of time, like, say, for example, every month or every other week or something. I'm just spewing out ideas, right? We might even, if it's interesting, of course, if people would like the idea, then we could look at challenging other creators' clubs as well, just creating an environment where we could learn and play games and have fun and enjoy the game, really. So please do tell me in the comments if that would be interesting, as I'm quickly running out of topics to discuss here, as our opponent seems to probably just be flagging in this position. But I think I'll keep the content all this way here, because I think the moves and the ideas we have been discussing in the position here have been relevant to the game and to my idea of creating a type of content here where we could like follow my thought process, which I think is an interesting way of doing it. At least a lot of you seem to be enjoying this way of being able to follow my thoughts and ideas as I play. Our opponent does seem to play a move, and I think we'll drop our knight back, as we've talked about. So what does our opponent play here with 40 seconds left on their clock? It's a really difficult position to maneuver here, so I don't really blame our opponent for having difficulties. But I think the critical way of dealing with this is probably getting this bishop out, as it's not paralyzed like their other pieces. Or they could maybe get their king here. This pawn move is probably a bit slow, and it doesn't really aid their development. It does, however, allow them to play their bishop into the game in another way. So let's have a look at this. I think we'll go on ahead and play this kind of a doubling up plan, and then we'll decide as we look at the other move which square here our knight or our rook should stand on as we double up. And let's go for this. They play their bishop out, and I think we'll go ahead and kick it back a bit. Their bishop, that is. Alternatively, we might look at this move. Simply because it hits the bishop as well as threatening. I see we're basically just threatening air here. There is really no threat here. So I think we might just do this first. Then I think they might drop back, but they capture. Okay. Then we recapture like this. And they try to strike at our structure. We talked about this move earlier on. So do we just go about... I think we might just play this even. I'm liking this move a lot because if they capture, this diagonal is going to be a lot better than this right now. I think, because it controls this square here. However, it does allow them to move this knight, but they could move their knight right now though. So we're looking at this move. We're simply looking to double up here. What happens if this is played? They are going to capture us. So I think we'll keep our position like this. And we might lock it up here. And try to utilize our powerful diagonals here. They capture. And I'm not really seeing a way of hitting our bishop. None of their knights could hit it. Their bishop can't. It's a different color. They might look for this move, however. But then we could even play this move. It would hit this knight, and it would also threaten this. Now we have another open file on the board, and this might become an idea in the long term. I don't really see what this move does though. It might just be a panic move to have something to play, because our opponent had like 8 seconds left. I think I like this idea. Simply because it has a threat here. First of all, it locks this knight in place, but also if we capture this knight here, we might have this move. What happens if they capture? Then we have an immediate checkmate. But if they don't, do we have a way of defending this pawn? We might put our rook behind it and try to pushing it here. Even getting it all the way over here might be a good idea long term. So we will go ahead and play this. I think it's going to be difficult for our opponent to respond correctly to this threat here with their time remaining. I think they played a really good move though, because if we take here now, then this is met by a king move here, and we can't really make a powerful threat. And now they threaten taking this pawn. Let's just have a quick look at this, so we don't really miss anything. We might have this move. Oh, that's probably no good. What happens if we push? I think it would be too early to do so, probably. This might have been a too weakening move, but I think we'll have to see long term. Does this move accomplish anything? They couldn't take our pawn if we went there. I think we will not waste too much time here. The move I'm looking at here as a backup move is this. Defending our pawn and threatening pushing it up the board. And now our opponent has to try to look for a continuation. They could grab this file here with their rook, but they proceed to flag. So that's 2 wins today, which this is our first video playing 2 games, but our first game wasn't really a game, I'd argue. So I think this is going to be the critical move here. The move rather. I mean, I think playing 2 games today was a good idea. Otherwise the video would have been like 1 minute, which could have been funny in a way, but I think I'd prefer keeping it this way. But thanks a lot for the game, Sokolov. This brings us up to 1385 ELO, which is the highest we've been so far. Let's go into the game review and have a look at the game. Today we played with an accuracy of 92.8, and our opponent played with an accuracy of 81.9. I see we had 2 inaccuracies only, and I'm curious to see where they were and how we could have played it differently. We had this opening here, they captured, and I'm happy to see this was a decent move. Let's turn the evaluation bar on and see whether it changes or not. Now this was the critical approach, but here we should have apparently taken like this. I'm not really accustomed with this kind of position, but I guess it's good because we would have a central pawn, but we still had a central pawn, however. So I'm curious as to why this is so different in evaluation. I think we might have had threats here, keeping our, if we kept our queens on the board rather. So that might be it, or we might have had threats here. But yeah, either way, we went for this slightly inaccurate way of doing it, and we developed correctly here. This was an inaccuracy. Apparently this capture was okay here. what would have happened here? E7. And if we castled, this was not the critical move. Yeah, we wouldn't have been able to play this because of their knight positioning. Okay, so I think I misevaluated this a bit, but our opponent didn't see it, and we castled, and this was the critical idea here, after which this was good. We got two great moves in a row. I think great basically means the move was the only best move, or the only winning move in the position, I think. Here we should have apparently pushed, but the evaluation stays pretty similar. I didn't like blocking our bishop here when it generated a threat. And here I see this was a better move for our knight. What would have happened if we went here? And they played some random move. I guess we just had a bit better position in this case. And we might threaten this. So I see it's a bit difficult to evaluate always, but it seems the computer found a better knight maneuver here. It just seemed a bit awkward as this knight move jumping here would have blocked our rooks as well, and it wouldn't have defended this pawn, so it wouldn't be as solid in a defensive way. Here we should have apparently went here, which makes no sense to me. What happens after this? Capture on d4. Yeah, I was blind here. I had forgotten about the idea of playing this move, which was basically defending our pawn. They captured, which was a bit inaccurate, but we can't really blame them, I think, because they had no time left. This was the best move, which I'm really happy about finding. Or happy with finding, rather. This was a panic move, I think. And this I'm really happy with having seen. Now they couldn't move their knight if they wanted to, and none of those pawns here could move either. The knight rather, not the pawn. And we get a bit closer to just decimating our opponent. This... What was our threat here? After bishop c5, then we would have went g4. Okay, because then we would have hit them in another way here. And if they captured, we had this move. And this, which is a powerful way of playing, I think. Yeah, because if they went to defend, we would have had this. Okay, but that's not how we played. We played in a, sorry, trying to go back here. We played like this, and then our opponent flagged. Well, that's our game for today, guys. Thanks a lot for watching, and I hope to see you all tomorrow. Bye bye.